Hello and welcome back to r/EntitledParents. In today's video we have a crazed, spoiled child wielding a fencing sword and an entitled mother that doesn't know what to do. So, I used to fence. Now, for some reason, fencing swords, foils, epées, and sabers are built as thrusting swords, and so they have a very sharp point covered with a rubber guard. This does mean, however, that being poked with one hurts a lot less than it would if it was uncovered. Fencing swords are also very, very flexible, and when you see pictures of the sport, it can look like the blade is about to snap. This has happened in the past, and at the World Championships in 1982, that did lead to the death of a defending Olympic gold medalist. So, this story of an entitled mother and entitled kid takes place at a summer school for kids I used to help run at a local rec center. Now, EK was a very bad kid. While most of the kids in the classes slowly improved over the fortnight-long course, he did not. In the bracket-style tournaments we would run at the end of each day, we'd always put him in the first match because we knew it would be over the fastest. He just refused to learn. When we tried to teach him technique and wean him off the wiper technique, swinging your sword back and forth like a windscreen wiper, he would adamantly refuse. He would go around whacking people across the back of the knees with his sword. Incredibly painful, let me tell you. We quickly realized that we were in fact being used as a daycare center by his mom. She had the money to pay for our course, so, you know, now he was our problem. So we retaliated. I mentioned how we dealt with him at the end of the day, but we were also not afraid to put him in timeouts, send him home early if he was being too disruptive, or give him non-equipment training. It is also pertinent to mention that this kid was 12 years old. We're not talking about some tiny brat. This is a bona fide preteen causing havoc. So we come to the end of the last days of the class, which were less lessons and more full tournaments to allow the kids to use what they had learned. Through sheer dumb luck, this kid wins one of the tournaments for the, not very talented kids, and so we give him the option of fighting one of the instructors, mainly so the kids can go home and be like, "Mommy, I beat the instructor." This kid, who had a personal dislike for me, chooses me. I go to suit up and come back, take up position, and the match begins. I'm not doing too much, mainly parrying his more blatant attacks to encourage him to be less wild, and then he steps in, uses his glove to bat away my sword, and hits my chest. Very illegal all over, but the problem is that the point of his sword sinks into my chest piece. Now, this is a foil. It weighs about 500 grams, and I'm wearing a heavier instructor's jacket, which has a plastic foam lining to make it more bearable to be hit frequently. The thing is, the jackets are not really designed for a direct stab from an uncapped sword, so the blade is sinking into my jacket and the kid is a weak little brat, but he is actively trying to push the sword deeper, putting his underdeveloped muscles behind his thrust. So I grab his blade, they're square so it's not going to cut my hand or anything, and pull the sword out and out of his hand, tossing it aside. It turns out that he knew we would check for the cap, so he had loosened it so he could shake it off during the match and then fight without it and hope we didn't notice. He must have shaken it off right before he came at me. The one rule we repeated over and over and over is that you never, ever, 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 ever uncap your sword. That is an immediate dismissal from the course with no refund for your parents. So we call his mom in. She looks very unhappy to have been pulled off her shopping spree. She literally said that to us. My boss and I take her into the office while the other instructors continued the competition. EK was sat in the office, looking very sorry for himself. And here's a ledger of who is speaking. I'll try to narrate as smoothly as I can. The boss says, "Ma'am, well, this isn't surprising. My son has been telling me all about how much you two have been bullying him on this course, not letting him have any fun, excluding him from the games, telling him off. Ma'am, your son has been incredibly badly behaved throughout this entire course. we are well within our right to discipline him for his own safety and the safety of others. Furthermore, this is a fencing class, not a free-for-all. It's sword fighting. It's meant to be fun. And besides, he's never done it before, so you're just punishing him for not being very good. Ma'am, you've been called in because we have to remove your son from the course. But there are 4 days left. We're well aware of that, but today your son broke a very important rule, one that put one of my instructors in danger. And what authority do you have to kick him out? This is a public building. Are you discriminating against him? At this point, I pull out the consent form she signed on day 1. Ma'am, when you enrolled your son, you signed this form. On page 3, all the rules of the course are listed, as well as the penalty for breaking each rule. As you can clearly see here, the penalty for uncapping your sword is removal from the course. That's why we called you in. Your son took the guard off of his sword and proceeded to stab someone with it. He could have really hurt someone. My son would never do that. It must have been an accident that you are punishing him for. You really need to be more careful with your equipment. You are putting these children in danger. I have maybe 35 witnesses, and those guards are incredibly hard to remove, so the only way they come off is through deliberate tampering. Well, if you are removing my son, I want my money back. So I say, sorry ma'am, the contract you signed clearly states that if a child is removed from the course due to their behavior, the signee is not entitled to a refund. Well, I didn't know that. I didn't read the whole thing. It was 4 pages of double-spaced A4 single-sided. That's your problem. I'll sue! And say what? You signed a contract you didn't read? Please just get your kid out of my class. We never saw Entitled Mom and Entitled Kid after that. However, our course and my boss's fencing school, which was his full-time job, did receive a bunch of negative online reviews, all from anonymous accounts leaving reviews for the first time. It's really unfortunate to see that the story ends with these negative online reviews because while this is obviously a nuisance and this child and his mother are clearly deranged, there's really no accountability to stop them from retaliating in an unfair and very long-lasting way. That's why I personally take Yelp reviews with a grain of salt. You never really know who's leaving them behind. Also, just to support the narrator's story, I actually have a sibling who does fencing, and I can confirm that the tips on the fencing swords are incredibly hard to remove. Most of them are glued on, so this kid must have been prying away for ages. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed this story. As usual, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. What did you think of this entitled parent and her child? Do you trust any online reviews that you see? Let me know down in the comments section below. And if you don't subscribe, I'm going to uncap my fencing sword and I'm going to come at you. So make sure to do that. And with that, I'll see you all in the next video.